Imagine being a child who has been torn away from their security blanket, their parents, the ones who stop the boogeyman from terrorizing the nights and curing their boo-boos when they scrape their knees. Now just imagine how they mightst feel when the CPS meant to protect them tears them away from their supposed abusers and places them with strangers who have zero comforting skills. They need to be calm. They are confused, lost, panicked, and needing their parents, but CPS took them away for the purpose of saving them. The kids don't even know why, and they are told that the parents they attach to no longer want them. What do you think that does? Do you think that this is how protecting children is supposed to look? Abolish CPS.
All right. Good evening, everybody. It is Monday night, and we are CPS Victims Hunting for Justice. Darren will be joining us shortly. I got Gunner backstage with me. I'm waiting for everyone else to come about. We got an interesting show for you guys tonight, so please stay tuned. I got some information that I found today that is going to be detrimental to my case via CPS's side, and I will be sharing that with the whole class here in a little bit. But first, I need to get this link out. That way we can get people in here that are supposed to be here. I got to go grab Herbert and Danielle and get them up in here. So everyone, please bear with me a minute while I do this. But as I said, Darren is running a little bit behind, and we start the show. I reached out and I was told to start the show, so here we are. I hope you guys are all having a fantastic Monday. Hey, Miss Debbie, how are you? Hi, Miss Clearwater. How are you, honey? Good to see you guys. So I got some valuable information to share with you guys, and I can't wait to share it. But I want to let me get this in here. Drop that in there. Gotta find Mr. Herberto. Yeah. Oh, I think we have a Mr. Darren. Oh, we have a Mr. Herberto. All right, so I'm gonna bring our Herbert.
Yeah.
We're waiting for Gunnar. We're waiting for Gunnar to get back.
Hey, how are you?
No, not really.
How are you?
Why are they fighting? I don't know.
You're echoing, Herbert.
Nothing's
Okay, hold on.
fine.
There's Miss Danielle. Oh, we got Mr. Gunnar back. We got Miss Danielle with us. Let me bring her out too. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello.
Hey, Benny, since you have the moderator position, could you do me a favor this evening? Let's give some integrals of just some viewer numbers. That way we know where we're at the peak to kind of help us track too.
Sure. We're at 5 viewers right now.
Okay.
I just shared it out to 9 groups, so and I liked it from my phone and did all that bullshit. So
the reason I'm asking for this, just so you guys understand, it's not so much about that. We're trying to track where we have the most impact and time period. Understand This is broadcast basically all across the world. But here in this country, we have to understand just because it's, and if some of you have never moved anywhere or gone anywhere from anywhere else, hey, look, there's the wife in the audience. But some of you actually can live in the California area, and I'm on East Coast time as well as Vinny and a couple others here, to where there's a lot going on in California that they want to hear about because they are being completely shut off, and they're trying to find avenues to get information. The largest child trafficking state is California. That's a huge thing. Actually, this goes all the way back to the document that we had told you guys about and before about the international international thing on Down Syndrome Foundation, where it tracked the Down syndrome kids, but all kids altogether that was in there on all ends of the spectrum that went into sanitariums, and the impact of sanitariums and the amount of illegal stuff that was happening, such as you're talking about abuse of several different types in these sanitariums. And so just so everybody understands, that same institution was run by the same program that is running your CPS versions now. It's all Department of Human Services, Department of Children and Service Family Division for every state. They ran the sanitariums.
Key word there, Gunner. Family division, divide and conquer.
Yeah. Well, let me explain.
Heard of Alfred
one thing that I was
Kinsey?
trying to do, Sharon was trying to explain to me too when you guys were having your early discussion, just to kind of kick this off. Guys, understand this: family existed long before governments did, and even early governments were based off of family or lineage or bloodline. They're wanting to take that completely away and the separate. Well, we don't live under a dictatorship and it goes under this bloodline. This no, but at the same time, we're supposed to be free, and family became before government. So even if we have to go back, even with that argument, and we've talked about this because we've been talking about our big case and some of the things that were the topics we're going to touch on, is who gave the states the right to interfere with the family at all.
Right.
I mean, I get the contract with marriage, but and they're considering them the children assets that they have property over. But this is a contradiction to your state's, my state's constitution. Now, I don't know how many of you have read your state's constitution, but I believe there's a very similar phrasing in to where it says the people are not property of the state. In other words, you're not a tangible, tradable. If that's true, CPS is violating its own state's constitution in all 50 states because they don't have jurisdiction over the children. They have jurisdictions when crimes happen. This is gross overreach by our government, both mainly founded in the states because it was profitable. Because when it was founded out, this was a decent program for orphans, which that's all it dealt with was orphans. But then it started dealing with problem kids. Well, I'm going to pose this argument. If your same government, Food and Drug Administration, has been poisoning you for decades and decades to where our food cannot be sold in any other country because of the food dyes, the additives, the preservatives, and all the other crap in there, have you ever gone down the rabbit hole to see what the side effects are of long-term consumption? Oh, yeah. ADHD. We've got new diseases we call diseases popping up. Mental things. They deal with your brain chemistry. They fuck with your brain chemistry. They fuck with your hormones, ladies. You ever wonder why you can't seem to get out of that bitchy mood?
Right. That's right.
Lady, I'm telling you ladies from experience. I've watched my wife go through it now. When she's getting preservatives and everything else, boy, that attitude starts jumping up a whole lot for a reason, and she doesn't know why. But as soon as she cleans her diet or corrects her diet, what happens? We go back to being a normal person.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a scary thing of just small doses that it affects her like that compared to every other woman, which also would explain if that is happening. Guys, this is cause and effect. This is not the American people's thing. This is the government, elected officials to our government that have voted for this for profit.
Have you ever heard of Alfred Kinsey, Dr. Alfred Kinsey? It's funny you're talking about like the mood changes and like everything. Alfred Kinsey had to do. Have you ever heard of him?
Yes.
Okay, I was just asking. All right.
No, we're talking about studies that have been suppressed because it wasn't good business.
Right.
So
listen, guys, this is just being honest. Sharon will tell you in the comments, I'm not lying when I say what I just said.
No, it's true. No. It's true.
So if this is the case, I want you to listen to me and follow down this train of events. Action, consequence, action, consequence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, why are women the highest filers of fucking divorce in this fucking country?
Right?
Because
It's
your food has poisoned you and changed your hormones,
mm-hmm.
chemistry. That's why
Hormones.
so
Yep.
many women today are like, I don't feel like me anymore in my 30s and 40s from all
Yep.
that consumption.
Right.
And it's not our fault, but we're being penalized, the people, because of the side effects of what they say was good and okay.
Right.
Now we have problem children. Now we have to have medication for ADHD, OCD,
Mhm.
this particular thing's form of this, instead of identifying of things of the brain, which is autism, that is actually, it's not just a temporary thing or a chemical imbalance, it's a permanent damage, because part of our cycle of evolution is to correct the issues. We couldn't deal with our environment. Our next generation has got the tools and or adapts through genealogy and through science to adapt to those particular things where we're immune from them.
Mm-hmm.
That's how our body works.
Well,
doesn't that explain all the problems? Now we're getting sinister as hell, because they're doing it by laws and what the hell they're selling us.
Well, since I got everyone here, even Darren's here, I see him in the back there. And we got most of our crew in here tonight. I see Debbie, I see Lady P, Darren, how you guys? Miss Clearwater's with us as well. There's 5 people viewing right at the moment. We had 6 to 7 2 minutes ago. So with that said, I got a bit of information to share with the group and with everyone out there listening. So, as everyone's probably aware, I am dealing with CPS, and I have a criminal case as well. Well, in the CPS side of the world, we have a case management hearing for kingship placement of my 4-year-old daughter.
Oh.
Well, CPS has put off interviewing my sister, going out, talking to her, talking to everyone involved for over 2 months.
The kinship?
Yep.
You're talking about okay.
This was ordered
Now, hold on. And in her house, please understand, these conversations are happening in her home illegally with no warrant, no court order, and no emergency. There is no right for them to come in. Even kids, that's not an excuse.
Right.
Let's clarify that. But I've already heard this story. Guys, you need to pay attention to what they've done. Listen real good. Go ahead, Vinny.
So they went in this week, today. They're there at 5 o'clock. The caseworker by herself. No cop, no nothing, just her. Interviewed each one of them. My sister, her husband, my younger nephew, who is 15 rather, and my 18-year-old niece, and my 19-year-old niece. Sorry, she just turned 19. And then my older niece. They interviewed every single one of them. Okay. Mind you, my sister told me this morning when I talked to her that she was going to record their conversation and that they will be on camera because she bought a camera for the inside of her house.
Record them. Every interaction, record. Do you hear this, people? This is how you catch them.
I've got all mine. Every time they know I'm going to record them.
This worker told my sister my entire file, okay, and said that I have been convicted and I am guilty
of
really recording.
Wow. And that's oh wow, that's messed up.
That sounds familiar, doesn't it, baby girl? Okay.
That is
sounds
wrong.
familiar, don't it? Look, we can now use that testimony and that evidence. It's not just happening in this state. They're doing this all over of telling people you're guilty and this and that, and you've not been convicted. And they're doing that from a position of authority as a representative of your state government.
Yep.
Hey, Benny, what did they say you were guilty of?
They said I was convicted of GSA.
Wow.
Okay. Was it corrected?
So they actually said you were convicted.
Yep.
But you haven't been convicted.
No.
Was it
corrected? Got it on. Did you hear him, Herbert?
Did they correct that, Vinny?
man
No.
convicted,
Didn't
Your sister correct it?
and there's been no verdict.
Hold on,
Did you
hold
tell
on,
him it's
Gunner.
not correct? Did you tell him to correct it, Vinny?
I wasn't there.
So your sister
No.
did correct it, stand up for you?
No, she stood up for me, and then the caseworker had the nerve to tell her she needed to see every part of her house. And I told my sister, I said, no, she does not. She just
Have you filed a
violated your
complaint?
right.
Have you
George
filed
is
a
like that,
These
complaint?
Lady
are
P.
family people.
Have you filed a complaint?
We're doing it right now.
Hey, Darren, me and Vinny was just on the phone earlier today talking about that. He called me once he got it. He's like, man, I'll tell you exactly what to do. This
I
is
sent
over.
you
Your
the
stuff's
I
over.
sent you the recording, Darren. It's in your
Yeah,
mail.
I got it all.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's over. They've done foot in the
Well,
mouth.
you know, here's the thing.
Wow.
Before we start filling all this stuff and all this big hoorah and look, it's over. Is it over? What did she do? She lied. She lied on tape. What is that going to do? She lied. That's it. They do that every day, all day long.
They did that
say
to
all
me.
day. That's it.
they
Hold
tri-
on. Hold on.
Talked
Gunner, hold
about
on.
his whole
I
case.
was listen to me. I
They
was
treated-
convicted and lost my kids because the judge used her adverse inference to find me guilty of all charges. Because they're allowed to do that. Because we're in family court now. We are not in the legal courts. They got all kinds of screwed up rules and all kinds of screwed
Right.
up things that they go by. I was guilty and lost my child for crimes that the state dismissed 2 weeks after.
Wow.
Yep,
But they
because
found
they
me guilty
decided.
and PR'd me because of that.
Yep.
And they've treated me like with my probation. They've treated me like I'm on probation
So
with
what I'm
them,
saying
and I'm
is,
not.
we need to look into, because somewhere along the
Mhm.
line, they have the rules or
All messed
the
up.
procedures or whatever they have to be able to get away with this. Because how can all of them keep getting away with this
Right.
if they're and no one's complaining about it? Like,
Right.
let's play this way. Vinny files a complaint. What happens? What should be the standard procedure and what will happen?
It should be investigated.
Yep.
There should be an investigation done.
Everything
Okay,
should stop
but
in his
what-
case when a criminal investigation proceeds, because that's a criminal act. You're not
Okay.
supposed to discuss things in
They
a
should
family
put
court.
the worker
An
on.
investigation should happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so she's investigated. She says, yeah, I said that stuff. So be it. Then what?
They should
It's also
dismiss her from her job.
who's handling the case.
And-
Therefore,
Where's the rules that says that she can't do that?
Right.
that was issued under the court order? That's usually the first thing a family court
I don't
does.
see any. I don't see where there would be any rules that you can't do that.
I mean,
But as far as
where's
federally
the-
juvenile cases, you can't.
Where is it? Because Herbert, can cops lie to coerce a confession from someone?
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
deception.
Yes.
Deception.
No,
It's
it's
not
not deception. It's in an investigation, in an interrogation. We are
Oh,
allowed
interrogation.
to-
Yeah. Mhm.
Interrogation. We're allowed to
What is
lie.
the
Yes.
CPS What is the
Oh, but-
CPS worker doing right now?
That's the same thing, just about. Yeah.
Oh, but it gets better.
Investigating, right?
Right, but it gets
Yeah.
better.
But I don't know if the CPS worker has the authority to
Oh,
lie
I know,
as a
Vinny,
police
hold on.
officer.
I don't.
Right. Okay.
Google
So
it.
go on, Vinny.
All right, so
That is true.
she goes on to have this conversation with them, go through her house. Meanwhile, when she comes back downstairs, she's sitting so close to the door where she could just escape. Okay. And my sister went out to have a cigarette in the garage because that's where they smoke. And she went out there to have a cigarette. And before she went outside, she said, maybe I should get an attorney. As soon as my sister said attorney, she fucking booked it for that door and left.
Of course she did. She knows her game's up. But what I'm getting at here is, guys, we need to find. This is a show about that. Okay, they're going to do an investigation. This has been done
I'm
a
looking
million
it up
times.
right now.
Okay,
How
well, now,
do we
hold on
stop
now.
this? Where do we find that it's okay for them to get away with this? That's the question.
Hmm.
Now
It's
let's
not.
look at the bigger picture. Vinny has got all of them from the discussion of this and that. He has an opportunity under the law with the particulars in his case and the things that have happened to go after everybody. They're going to make it look like everything, and they're going to pin what that is they're trying to protect. They know they've been got, but the person that's going to take the fall, and I want you caseworkers, if you're watching this, you need to listen. You have now become the fall guy.
Right?
They will blame everything on that caseworker and nothing further than the judge, the district attorney. We were just doing our job based off of what that caseworker was doing. And if they were doing that to break the law, we didn't know that.
Okay.
And
I mean, I'm on felony probation, and I mean, they've tried to like do the same thing they did to Vinny and tried to get me locked up. They said they can come out to my house unannounced and everything, but there's no court order, nothing that states that, and I'm still waiting on it. But they would, they can.
Here, guys. This is what I'm getting at. We all
so
know
where
it's
does
wrong.
it? Right, but where does it say that?
Right, because you can't. If you're going to go after them in the courts, what are you going to do? Go tell the judge they lied again? The judge is going to say, "Okay, have a nice day." For us to beat them in there, we need to have the solution. The solution needs to be we have to find where they're able to lie.
I can say that on the with probation's told them that this is criminal, that's civil. Y'all keep that out of it. Y'all deal with that on the other side. She's in compliance, and there's nothing. They're not going to mess with it on their part. So I do know that.
What you're saying that? Let me quote this real quick, Darren.
Now,
this is something that I found. Okay, the 4th and 5th Amendment were described as protection against all governmental invasion of sanctities of a man's home and the privacy of life. The court referred to the 4th Amendment as created a right to privacy no less important than any other right, carefully and particularly reserved to the people, reaffirming the principle set forth in Pierce versus Society of the Sisters and Myers versus Nebraska.
Right.
Okay, but she's investigating a situation which she's privy to the information of your court findings, because that is why they are supposed to be there, because of that. So it's not like it's a secret to the department, right? Like that's what their argument's going to be.
But
so she can come and ask questions.
Under their policy and procedures, it states in their policy and procedure under the Title 4E funding that they were under, that they cannot share or disclose any information on a case to anyone that it was going to be kingship or foster care placement.
Okay. But I mean, that kind of goes out the window when it's your sister.
Right.
She's obviously privy to information.
I'm
not being a dick. Look, I'm not being a dick. What I'm trying to do is
challenging
get to a resolution, because this happens to all of us all the time. I'm not trying to be an asshole. I'm just trying to say, yes, Gunner, you're absolutely fucking right. He's got them dead to nuts, of course. In our eyes, in the eyes of the Constitution, in the eyes of the
keeps going on.
But it goes on and on and on. How many times did it happen to you? How many times did it happen to you? How many times did it happen to you? How many times did it happen to me?
Exactly.
We argue the shit out of this. We go to court. We say perjury. We say all of these things. And nothing ever
when's
works.
Right.
But where is it okay? Right.
Where is it going to bring it to where it stops and makes a change? Like, where is it going to happen in these courts, in these things when we bring it to their attention?
I'll tell you exactly how you do it. You take the one thing that they want the most, the money. You bury them in lawsuits that they have to pay enough to shut them down. And once the cost effectiveness of the program becomes so costly to run, it will shut down. You're talking about massive lawsuits all over. That's what we were trying to encourage. Here's some of the ways you can handle this particulars in your case. Come to find out, you should have changed jurisdiction anyway. Under those case laws that Vinny's talking about, that he shared with us today, it says that it's a constitutional right for your family. And here's the thing, if that's the case, that's one of the things we're going to ask. If that's the case, then the lowest court of the land, the family court system, does not have jurisdiction over something that is constitutionally protected. You should not hear this case. If you want to divide a marriage and assets because you have the license, yes. But when it comes to family and children and everything else, we're coming to find out.
Lady P does have a point, because Lady P does have a point about the taxpayers. The taxpayers, I mean, they're the ones, you know, but we paid the lawsuits, the taxpayer money, not theirs. And that's
once again,
the insurance company. The insurance company pays the lawsuit.
That has their bonds. So you go after their bonds. Once their bonds are worn out, then it goes after their personal assets till they are financially ruined. Financially ruined. And here's the other part. These charges are crimes against children, and you were out there bond. You will never serve in a public sector whatsoever or deal with children. You need to understand those things they threaten with you against crimes against children and everything else. When you start turning on them with your constitutional rights, the criminal charges you'll go after
they kidnapped and trafficked and everything.
Criminal charges, because they'll use the evidence on the record and the testimony in the civil case to go before a grand jury and say, we want an indictment to arrest these people. Technically, that's the only way you're ever supposed to be arrested. So those arrests where you get on the side of the road and some of the other things are not even legal arrests, because you're supposed to go before a grand jury to get an indictment before you're arrested.
Right. That's right. You have a right to it.
But once again, you fight that in a state court, they're not going to see that. Why?
State
they
courts
don't have jurisdiction to even make that, which is why the first thing you should do, like I've said just recently, which is why your family attorneys, most of them don't have a federal license to practice. And then come to find out, even your state's attorney, you need to not only check that, but whether or not they're registered as being public or a private attorney. Because if you practice for the state or subcontract for the state, that's a public license, not a private. And if you're taking and practicing law without a license, or the proper license will say it, how they get to throw it in your face. Well, what about the CPS attorney? He's only got a private license, not a public license. I guess the same applies, right, Your Honor? Because we're all equal under the law. Then you better do what you just said. That's how you let them hang themselves. Let them say you're going to turn on me, and know that you've got something. You're going to hold on to it. Don't scream everything from thing. That's the whole point of your trial, is to surprise them with shit they don't see that is right in front of their face. When we go to hand them their fucking state manual, here's your state manual, figure it out. Is this your state manual? Yeah, that's our current handbook, or this or that, or our policy and procedures. Okay, great. And that was published, that was pulled off the website. I got it from the right place in this ad. Is this true and accurate? Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Is it constitutionally sound? And they're going to go through, but of course it is. We've had it gone through this and that. I said, okay, let's examine this. Then I'm going to bring out my highlighted version, that everywhere it says all the constitutional violations in your policies and procedures and or your handbooks that says you have the right to, or this is what you will do, you're handing to people, is you're violating their constitutional rights, and you were dumb enough to fucking print it.
Gunner, should I read that top half so they fully understand?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'll read this to you guys. In the early 1920s, the United States Supreme Court first reviewed the rights, liberties, and obligations of parents to direct the upbringing of their children. Two important decisions, Myers versus Nebraska and Pierce versus Society of Sisters, established a legacy which was followed by a series of decisions holding that.
One break for a second there, Benny. Let's explain something to him there. A legacy means it's not been overturned for a very, very, very long time and is still legal and law today. Let me clarify that so you understand what he's saying. Go ahead, Benny.
Okay. Holds the parents is a fundamental constitutional right and among the basic civil rights of man. Choices about marriage, family life, and the upbringing of children are among those rights. The court has ranked as a basic importance in our society and sheltered by the 14th Amendment against the state's unwanted unsurpassive disregard or disrespect. Boom. There you go.
So
So you want me to talk on that?
Yes, I do.
Absolutely.
I do want you
Okay.
to.
So here we go. Here we go right there, guys. Here we go. Ready? This just takes a little bit. This is what I do all the time, guys. Supreme Court declines to hear parent's case against Child Protective Services investigator for retaliation against their family. Now, I want you to hear this part of this reading of the judge. Hold on a second. Oh, shit. Hold on. Come on. This article came out in January 10th of 2023. Okay. One second here. Let me go down a little bit. This is going to blow your fucking minds. And this is why what we just were arguing doesn't matter. Government investigations are reputation damaging, stressful, and costly, said Anya Bedwell, an attorney for the Institute for Justice, which represents the parents in their appeal to the Supreme Court. No one should be the victim of retaliation through a governmental investigation just because they seek to vindicate their rights. This is government intimidation and abuse of power at its worst. The court should have taken the parents' case and made it clear to all government officials that retaliatory investigations are unconstitutional. Department of Health and Human Services statistics indicate that CPS caseworkers investigate the home lives of roughly 3.5 million children every year, and CPS investigations represent just a fraction of governmental investigations launched each year against citizens. The Institute for Justice is committed to the idea that the government officials do not have carte blanche to make citizens' lives miserable and bully them into silence through investigations. Its senior attorney and co-counsel in the case. Officials can't be allowed to weaponize their investigative powers. We will not rest until the Supreme Court says. We will not rest until the Supreme Court says. Sorry. Officially abused. Hold on. Sorry. I just skipped down all the way here.
It's a laptop there, and it does that to you.
All right.
Mine just did that.
But listen, guys, this is why it's so important when you file some of your briefs or some of the things that you file, quote your case law that you have on there, because then they have to defend that. And if it's never been off the books, and here's the thing, even if they have to it's not in the computer, they got to go back to the law library and open and crack the book for that case. They are required to do that because you've quoted it. So
What followed was a nightmare. What followed was a nightmare for the family, involving multiple interviews of the already traumatized boy, a referral to a clinic for an inspection of the boy's genitals and rectum, and a threat to take away the father's law enforcement license. The investigator only backed off from harassing the family after the family found a pro bono lawyer to help them defend their rights. These lawyers helped the family appeal the investigator's findings of child neglect, which were quickly overturned by the review board based on the lack of evidence. Once the parents cleared their names, they sued the investigator for violating their First Amendment rights. The district court agreed with their claim and denied the investigator her defense for qualified immunity. The 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals disagreed, however, writing that even assuming that the facts in the complaint are true, there is no such thing as retaliatory investigation claims in the 8th Circuit. In other words, the court gave a blank check to government officials to punish individuals by investigating them. By refusing to grant the parents' petition for certiorari, the Supreme Court allowed the decisions to stand. Government investigations are reputation damaging, stressing, and costly. We already said that part. Hold on. Then it goes down to there. The Supreme Court says officials can't be allowed to weaponize their investigative powers. We will not rest until the Supreme Court says so. So there, that tells you right there. They don't care. They don't care if these people are lying. He says it very clearly there. Even if these are true, even if these complaints are true, you got to read between the lines when these Supreme Courts make these rulings, because they just said right there, they don't care if they're lying.
You know how you prove it, Lady P?
In my case, did that come out, Darren?
That was November 23rd, 2023.
So my question here is this. and follow my trail with this, and I'll get to the question. If the Chevron doctrine has done as much damage as we all know it has done, that means both state and federal judges have been ruling according to those case law guidelines until it's been recently overturned, that maybe their way of thinking has been like this for over 40 years. And this is such a drastic impact to our society because of the overturning of that ruling and the damage that was done to allow them to do all the unconstitutional things just because they were experts, according to that case law, that they abused that for that. Then the question, I guess, then takes and becomes, how are we to say that we just maybe need to revisit, even though they've ruled on it here in the past so many years, maybe even some of the newer federal rulings that maybe it still has that way of thinking or those same complaints, or Chevron, like I said, Chevron was just recently done. So maybe that may even affect those cases, is my point. Do you not agree?
Oh yeah, I agree.
Well, I mean,
So what is your question, Gunnar? You said my question is, and then you didn't ask the question.
I did ask the question, and he just answered it. I asked him whether or not he would agree the fact that even though that case was done in 2023, because of the Chevron doctrine and ruling that way and that case law being in place so long for over 40 years, that we have to go back and actually look at our other case laws to see whether or not they are even constitutional now. That's the type of damage I'm talking about. Case laws and everything else, because they were following that Chevron ruling. That's what I'm trying to get through to people. That Chevron ruling is going to have a very, if we start looking at the way we should, anything that used that case law from Chevron, well, I'm an expert, whether it meant creating an agency, changing a policy and procedure, or anything else, we now have to go back and do a full audit to make sure everything is constitutional now because of that case law, all the way up from when before it was passed. Because that's what we're supposed to be doing, is going back and making the corrections. But the states are not doing this with anything they do because it makes them money. That's why. When we hold them accountable and we say, listen, we want a constitutional audit of all your policies, procedures, laws, anything you have, anything state done must not infringe in any particular way constitutional rights, and we are going to employ, and they do have, under the state's attorney's office, should have a division to make sure that they are constantly compliant as the case law changes and the rulings are made. That's part of the state's job they have not been doing for over 40 fucking years because there was no need to. They were all professionals. They got away with it. That's why your state became so powerful in the court systems. They didn't have jack to do other than deal with commercial disputes and contract disputes the states had, or deal with a murder charge. But once again, it had to do with violating. It was clear and cut. It's murder. I mean, it's taking away the rights. Obviously, with there, you still had to respect the rights. Why? Because it's a whole lot harder to get something into a criminal courtroom, especially with constitutional rights, because it'll stop it right then and there. It throws the case on.
So what stops them from going into their criminally is their immunity, correct?
Yeah.
Does it? That stops them from immunity against a criminal action?
Mm-hmm.
Well, not when they violate constitutional rights, though.
What if they... Okay, so let's go with that for a minute. Maybe this is where we're wrong. Maybe we go after them criminally for something here. Because... what's the word? Like, you ruin their names. You know, like you ruin their names. Like, not blasphemy, but you're saying the wrong thing about someone, but you're spreading it all over the place.
Defamation or something.
Defamation of character. Yeah. What about things in those areas? I mean, I don't know if you can get a criminal complaint out of that, but maybe so.
I know a lot of us that they've arrested, they've put on the news, and they've put us out on the jail's fucking websites.
You're on the docket. Your name's on the docket. Docket is public information. You've been drug into court.
But Vinny's case is different because it's supposed to be kept secret.
Well, at the same time, it's supposed to be done in the right fucking jurisdiction too. That he ain't lived there 6 years for them to have it.
I did have that investigated today, Darren. I talked with Lisa Kramer today, and we had a lengthy talk. And I explained some of the case to her, not all the details because she didn't want all the details, but certain details. And she said they do not have subject matter jurisdiction.
See, the overturn of Chevron and President Trump coming in, and why everybody's so scared is because he realizes the impact of the amount and the length of illegal activities, policies, procedures, and punishments that people should have never endured that he is looking to expose. And they are talking about completely dismantling because it's unconstitutional and holding the states accountable, as the federal government should, to make sure that these state agencies, whatever they are, everybody is complying with the Constitution. My issue is why would this ever be a question for any person that lives in this country not to have those rights? And they go for everyone, rich, poor, black, white, yellow, green. It doesn't matter. Those are universal rights in our country.
That's
Okay?
that's why they say shall not be infringed.
Yeah. And that shall is an uncompromisable you must when you translate that by Black's Law Dictionary. It's a you must. There is no room for interpretation. It is an absolute. So the freedom of the people to assemble shall be. That means there's no room for interpretation, conversation, or even discussion. It just is what it is. But the problem is we've come to the point of not standing for our Constitution and instituting that in everything they do because somebody wants money or power over somebody else, instead of leave me the hell alone, get out of my house. If you are not invited here and it ain't burning down and I haven't committed a crime, don't even bother. And that's what the Constitution says. Is it being followed? No, because Chevron said we could create specialists or professionals in their field and label them as that. Hell, even the police department, we're doing that. We're anti-theft, we're criminal specialists. And there was a little trend that went in there, and that was done to advertise a legal thing, to advertise that we are specialists, notifying you, the public, of it. Well, what is SWAT? SWAT is a specialist team. We have specialist officers, homicide, death special investigators, homicide. They're specialists. Nobody else does what they do, investigates homicides. Therefore, they specialize it. They met the definition. That's how they got away with it. No matter the Constitution or not, that's the amount of evil that we have all now encountered and been slapped in the face with. That not only that, but Trump's been faced with the same thing that JFK was talking about, that he was going to reveal. The same reason Ronald Reagan left the Democratic Party to go to the Republican Party was because they all saw the same thing. This has got to stop. This is not constitutional. And the corporations and the money makers, money is worth more than a life. You don't believe me? Your life has a price tag on it. Go check your trust for your Social Security fund, because they took one out for it.
They do on everyone that gets a Social Security card from the time you're born.
Yep. What does the Social Security card do for you? I mean, when you really think about it. And
Nothing
you don't
really.
The Amish don't have one. I mean, they can still do business. They can still trade, but they're not part of that system. They have chose not to participate under their belief system, but they don't ask the government for anything. They depend on their community and neighbors because we don't need it. And we've proven that. And they've proven it over decades that they don't need it. Matter of fact, it was the government that came in and spilled all that raw milk on that dairy farmer over in Pennsylvania. Why do you think they lost Pennsylvania so damn fast? When was the last time you heard about the Amish community showing up to vote? You done took and messed with their milk, their livelihood, their families. How did they fight back? They all showed up to vote, and it wasn't the way that they wanted. People are waking up. People are watching this show. People are hearing our stories, and it's no longer now the topic of conversation. If you've had an encounter with CPS, it must be this, because now they can reference popular stories such as Allie's or such as this person or that person on TikTok. It's not hard to find a story or watch them on a video break into a home to steal a child.
Oh shit, here we go.
Need to explain to many of you listening that Chevron is overruled. So as everyone I imagine is aware, in Loper Bright v. Raimondo, the Supreme Court relegated to history what case after case was previously calling the familiar two-step analysis for interpreting statutes delegated to federal agencies. Now, in the wake of the Supreme Court's formal announcement and endorsement of the major questions doctrine in West Virginia v. EPA, the Biden administration palpably began to pull back from some of its most aggressive proposed rules. But I think most observers believe that the overruling of Chevron promises to be even more consequential. For those of you who've never read the original Chevron case, at issue was a question of environmental law under the Clean Air Act. And the interpretive question there was what Congress meant by a, quote, source of emissions. That's the key word, source. Did Congress mean that every pollution-emitting device at a single plant must have environmental controls? Or did source refer to a facility as a whole, allowing operators some discretion to manage their overall facilities as long as they did not exceed total permitted emissions for the plant as a whole? Supreme Court looked at the statute, and actually EPA had bounced back and forth between originally the Nixon Ford administration to the Carter administration, and then we're now back to calling a source the entire plant in the Reagan administration. And ultimately, the Supreme Court deferred to EPA's definition of source as meaning the facility as a whole. So with Chevron gone, this suggests that agencies aren't just going to be denied deference on novel, aggressive new readings of longstanding statutes like EPA's 2015 Clean Power Plan. It now will be the case to litigants, both the regulated community and, as I think we can expect, the environmental groups, as was the case in NRDC v. Chevron. We're going to expect these litigants to have more opportunity to challenge agency interpretation of words like source, cause, ultimate consumer, and of course, what we saw in the DC Circuit's recent decision in the U.S. sugar case, the word new. There, EPA said new meant new relative to the time that EPA had first began setting standards for the category of sources at issue there generally. So EPA, to EPA, new meant built after 2010. And the industry just agreed and said new meant new compared to when EPA first proposed the particular standards at issue. So new meant new after 2020. In a per curiam decision, the DC Circuit, a panel consisting of Judge Wilkins, Katsas, and Walker, recognized that EPA's, quote, reading of the statute is semantically plausible, unquote. But notwithstanding what they referred to as ambiguity in the statute, the DC Circuit went on to search for its best reading, and doing so ultimately agreed that the industry challengers had the better argument and set aside EPA's overbroad definition of the word new. So with that as an example and a bit of background, I'm now going to turn.
You guys heard it. Agencies that have cause. Well, we got a call, so now we have a cause to come investigate. They've created the cause by having anonymous call-ins. Oh, I think they're this, that. Well, that triggers an investigation. cause, their policies and procedures. Guys, they're trained. They're using your tax dollars, state and federal, to train employees of the state and or subcontractors to violate your constitutional rights to get into your damn home for one
But here,
reason.
listen, with using that, what that means is this: you can no longer go to court, and the judge is like, yeah, you guys look like a good family. I don't see anything that you've broken the law. I don't see that you did anything. And the DHS lady stands up and goes, but Your Honor, it's us, the department's opinion that this person deserves to stay in the state's custody and this, that, and this. That's over with. They cannot do that. The judge has to rule on what is there and by the book. No more discrepancy, no more any of that stuff. It's got to
No
be
more freedom.
ruled state. That's what the big deal about Chevron is.
They don't get to act like big judges and make those big important decisions, which is what they wanted. Instead of, well, let me go back to my rules for this and what case laws apply and don't apply and good. And guess what? That meant less work for them in between there and a decision to actually go do their homework and follow the case law and look at the case law and rule appropriately, because now the judge has the discretion. Why? Because I'm a specialist and I'm a judge. But technically, state judges are not state judges. They're admiralty judges, and they are basically considered bookkeepers.
But regardless, at the end of the day, they have to rule the way that the laws and that everything states. There's no more discretion. There's no nothing. It is what it is. And now words like imminent danger.
Yep.
Imminent danger is what imminent danger is. They can't go in there and be like, oh, because of the future. No, imminent danger says life altering or a life-taking event right now. That's what imminent danger is. There's no more being able to waft it and be like, oh, well, tomorrow or this. It means right now.
And we shared that case law with you guys.
Something hasn't happened to that kid. What happens? That's why Chevron's big for the DHS also. These definitions that all of us argue about.
When we take our big case that we're working on, we are going to make sure to instruct the judge to keep in mind the Chevron case and everything that has to be overturned, including cases that fall between that window of those 40 years that maybe the Chevron doctrine was applied and something was done unconstitutional. So that now they're going to have to even look at the case law that was passed and make a ruling on that case as well, because they can't follow that case law. Because now, Your Honor, you're going to have to now make a ruling on every, on the case laws they bring up that's not there and evaluate it under the federal ruling and or move the jurisdiction to the proper court to reconsider because of the overturn of Chevron. That's how deep this goes, people. That's how bad they had us over a barrel in the judicial branch of government. That's how embedded they are. You hear me? This proves how embedded they are, because technically, because of the overturn of Chevron, it is then the due diligence of the judicial branch of government to then examine every case that the Chevron was quoted in and or that ruling was applied or that spirit was applied, and reverse that decision and go back to that. But until the rule is they should be doing it, but they're lazy and they say, well, until somebody files a court case on it to overturn it or challenge it, we're going to keep it on the books as law. I think we need a constitutional amendment that this is a requirement. That when case law comes up, that they're supposed to make the correction.
Look, we got to be really careful how we throw that around too, because one thing we're not supposed to do is amend the Constitution. So we got to be real careful with messing with the Constitution and changing it and altering it, because the next thing you know, we'll have people throwing out whatever they don't want. Oh, freedom of speech, we got to amend it. We got to amend it. So we got to be real careful about how we loosely throw those terms around, because the destruction and the damage that can be done by amending the Constitution and allowing that to happen is just, you might as well throw away the United States of America, because once it's done once,
either that or do a subclause of it of something called an accountability act.
Well, there we go.
We need to have an accountability act. Let's put it into an act. If we don't want to go that far as this and that, well, then we make an act that every year that it is a requirement of all courts to keep up with federal case rulings and how it applies. And when corrections are needed to be made on case law, there is a special division that does nothing but review and compare all that stuff on a federal level, as so the states must do as well. Then the federal government will notify them within a certain time period or window that it needs to go in that act to notify the states, hey, the federal has made passed this act that now we have to go. This one affects this as being unconstitutional. We now have to look at every time it was mentioned in any other case to see whether or not that case followed the particular laws or constitution as it should. Because when you say not only was the ruling wrong, but it was the very act of that ruling was unconstitutional, that's a major freaking thing. And here's the thing. We're not going to fix it in our things. What we're seeing is a change in our country, a dramatic change that I think most of us don't realize. Our children and our great-grandchildren are still going to be cleaning up the mess from the Chevron ruling. Because as soon as these worms figure out we can't do this anymore, we got to find another way, they will adapt, as did CPS, Department of Children and Family Services, went from sanitariums to getting into your home. And if you don't believe me, go watch a history lesson. Go look it up.
So to add to your speech there, Gunner, let's just update them on a broader scale. Okay, guys, I want you to listen to this, okay? Because I want you to go do your homework and I want you to go look this up, okay? Yeah. Because I found this very valuable information to know, and I think we, the people, need to know it. Under the Kingship Act, which is going into effect on January 1st, 2025, it states, by January 1st, 2025, the State Chief Information Office must publish recommendations for the appropriation under exceptions. Also by January 1st, 2025, each public agency and the legislative and judicial branches must have policies addressing this prohibition on their network and devices. And the policies must include disciplinary action for any violations. Agencies or judicial branches should consider how to address juvenile abuse, neglect, and dependency cases where pornographic, as defined by the law, may be evidence in this case, which means they cannot have any pornographic for children in any of their databases, which we know they do.
Listen, guys, the only way that we do this is holding them accountable in the courts. So here's what we're going to do. We can only do so much. What we're looking for, and we're going to meet after this show, of some core different people, people that, listen, if you're a legal assistant, anybody that's great at running down rabbit holes, chasing down this and that, we are working on this big case, and we need to collect a massive amount of evidence and or research that needs to be done just to make sure. We're also going to have to figure on this thing that it's also going to open the door that you can be not so much a class action person, but we still have to talk to Kim about that, of anybody else that kind of wants to be part of the main thing. But we're limited to 20 that can sit there and be listed on the docket. We want to make it less, so we have less to go through and less confusion. Possibly getting
that doesn't mean we can't make 20 teams of 20. So yeah, we have ways around that.
So there's ways of doing those things. Even though you're not sitting there at the bench, it still can be named as a damaged party, or once again getting some of your testimony. But once again, it has to go with, we're not going to do this. We're going to focus in on your constitutional rights violations, and that's what this is about, is shutting them down for constitutional rights violations, proof that it has happened in every state. You know, and it's a real simple description. Did they have a warrant or a court order to enter your home at any time? If so, how many times? Do you have it recorded? Do you have it documented? Anything else? We can subpoena anything else after that, and there will be people we will put on the stand, probably, and that's what we're gonna discuss, either one or two from every state, just to give examples to the court of saying this is not an isolated incident. This is a national issue. And even in every state, here's the evidence of all states saying that they have the right to do it and proof that they are doing it. Now those people are going to have to be held accountable. But guys, we want to get to the point of actually asking these government officials from the state and asking them, why don't you keep up with case law? Why don't you? And why would you ever compromise the Constitution in anything? That goes to your very integrity. What is wrong with you? And maybe each state needs to come up with an audit officer or an accountability officer to make sure it's keeping up with the Constitution. And that's we, the people, saying you should be doing this anyway. To be dead honest, if we're paying that tax dollars, forget your stupid program of putting whatever in here. Put me in make sure your people are trained in everything else, that nobody's doing anything unconstitutional. That way we don't have to bother the courts. Because if you're doing everything the right way and we're doing it under the Constitution, which we're getting a call to do under this new administration, is a huge return to the Constitution. And that's what nobody's liking. But this should have been automatic. I don't understand why they didn't think of this before, to have somebody be compliant. You know why? Because we didn't have other trains of thoughts. Our founding fathers thought everybody wanted to be there for a reason, and they would agree to the Constitution, which is why every state signed and has a statehood, because they agreed to follow that Constitution and never violated in that position. Accountability. But they don't. They brush it because, you know why? This is something Kim covered last night, which is great to like and follow the show and make sure that you guys are keeping up with this. Why? Because you missed a big part of what Kim was talking about. Kim had a lot of information last night, guys, that you guys, if you didn't see it, go back and watch the show.
Well, Gunner, what you were just talking about with these states and holding them accountable and like oversight. Here in Georgia, that consent decree that was in effect with the Kinney A, and they would call them out, and they had to follow under this consent decree for, I mean, it was over a decade. And they do have under the DHS, which is the Department of Human Services down here, they have a Kinney A group, it's called the Kinney A Watchful and Oversight Committee, that they focus on just those things that was in that consent decree. They have a what am I trying to say? They have a group, like a panel, like that's what they focus on. They are just focus on the counties or whatever that happened with that within that Kinney A, but they don't have to be under the consent decree anymore. But down here, they do have it's a room board and watchful oversight committee that does work under DHS that does look into that.
Is very similar to what an ombudsman would kind of do, which is a third party that basically is up to date on all federal and state laws, where you can go to them with questions and say, can they do that? Or if they don't do that and they're supposed to direct you in the area. The problem is most states have not even got an ombudsman or those councils. So there's nowhere for anybody or any accountability officer to balance it out, because it would cost them money.
Well, I'll tell you, I've been reading in the news on Child Welfare Information Gateway that just like Georgia, but it wasn't in Georgia here. It was only over like 2 counties, but now they have it over the whole state, but they're not under the consent decree anymore. But I know like Idaho or Rhode Island or something, there's other states that are starting to pick up on that the consent decree thing, and they're coming up with the oversight, like the thing like that. So I do know that they're starting to look in, but it's not moving fast enough. You get one, because this Kinney A, it should have been over the whole state, every jurisdiction.
Understand this, and this
all
is
right, guys.
I found out.
Okay.
DOJ is, if you win your civil case, it will give the DOJ and the FBI the window to press criminal charges against them. But until you walk across the street after you've won your civil case, they're not going to do a damn thing. You win your civil case, you take it to FBI, and then you press those criminal charges. So when we are talking about who we're doing, don't think we're not going across the street. And the FBI and DOJ already knows about what's going on. They're waiting for our civil case to be filed. So they come in hard.
All right, guys, let's do this last words here, Herbert.
Where's
Okay.
Herbert?
My last words are: don't allow the police into your home or CPS into your home unless there's a court order or some type of a warrant. Even if the police want to come into your house, it has nothing to do with CPS. Don't allow them in unless they have a warrant.
All right, Danielle.
Yep. Just keep fighting, don't give up, and let our voices be heard, because we're making it's happening, y'all, and it's coming to the light. I wish it would move quicker. I mean, I wish, but share your stories. That's what, keep fighting.
Oh yeah. Gunner.
Guys, learn your constitutional rights.
Mm-hmm.
Know where to stand them. Get some education on this. This is something you should have already known as a citizen that is actively voting. That way you're a voter as well. But also, guys, we're working on for next week, Sunday, between 9:30 and 10 o'clock. I will be hosting a brand new podcast here on this channel. Guys, I want you to join you. We're going to deal with everything from case law, similar things on this show, as well as some of our special guests, like my wife that has a degree in psychology and early childhood development. Is we're also going to be discussing some of the things about healing and getting back and preparing for your kids to come home, because there is a lot of psychological issues that you're going to have to deal with that you don't know what your kid's been through, whether you've been apart from them 2 years, 5 years, whatever. There's some damage and there's some ways to go about it and some ways not to go about it. And some of that takes restraint on us because we just want to hug them and grab them up. But sometimes it may take a little bit longer than that because what they've been told. And you're going to have to face that reality. This show is to help you maybe get some of the tools, reference books, anything else that we can do to kind of help you start that healing process now, because guys, we're working on this case to get everybody home and end CPS permanently and forever.
When is this be on, Gunner?
It's going to be on Sunday evenings between 9:30 and 10. That's going to be part of the after show. We're going to briefly discuss that, kind of learn. I got to learn some of the studio stuff there, or I think Darren's going to pop in and kind of produce it a little bit for a while. You'll see some of the back show. We're trying to put together some kind of flyer thing for all the shows to kind of let you guys advertise with the times. We're trying to get this thing together because, guys, we are getting attention. Our numbers are going up and through the roof. We're seeing a huge amount of
attention. The answer is Sunday.
Sunday at between 9:30 and 10. Pay attention. Stay tuned. Okay. Hit that like and button out there to follow for announcements. We'll probably put it on the page, or it'll be seen in the next show, or when we make that decision from there. We will definitely get out to people, but you gotta watch to know the information and get the education.
Hey, Vinny, I'm just curious. What's your numbers look like now, Vinny? What does your numbers look like?
Oh, no, they're up there.
We got 10 people right now. 10 people in here right now.
Yeah, we got 10 people watching right now.
Okay.
I just want to say this. Never judge a book by its cover. Never judge a human that has created his own life. Never put kids last. You put your kids first. That means no matter what, you fight for your children. They are your blood. They are your legacy.
Oh yeah, amen to that, Vinny.
Mm-hmm.
Take us home, fearless leader. Wrap it up.
All right, everybody. We are going to have a meeting after this. If you guys want, Lady P, I have your email address, so you don't have to email me. But if you guys want in on this, then email us at cpsvhuntingjustice@gmail.com, and you guys can come to this show after. Not really a show, our after meeting where we're going to talk about all kinds of good stuff. It's not on the air, so we can speak freely and do whatever. I want to thank everybody, because although it says the number is 10 right now, look at, we're doing like 500 to 1,000 views a day that people are coming to the channel and watching this. And that's all you guys sharing this information and getting it out there. So please keep doing that. Like, share, do all those good things. Get your friends in on it. Let everybody do what they got to do so that we can keep spreading this word. So we're trying to pack this up to make
Pack
it
it
go
up.
on.
Right.
So
Miss
that being
Clearwater
said-
says Monday morning for me. She goes, that's 5 a.m. and on Monday morning for that 9 o'clock.
It's time for a new job. Got to get the thirst shift.
We love your support.
All right, everybody. I'm the CPS Punisher, and we are out of here. We'll see you guys in the show after.
Bye, everyone.
Getting crazy, baby, chill. Don't medicate, just meditate. You waking up now, well, baby, you hella late. Educate, look at what's going on, let it resonate, accelerate. Find your inner hunger like you never ate. Agenda is to push the hate, separate and segregate. Don't celebrate quite yet, the storm is coming, Q, for heaven's sake. Violence that they demonstrate, instigate and penetrate. The values of our country and our God is what they desecrate. My fighters ain't no featherweight, pulling out the seams of the fabric that they fabricate. They feed us lies, manipulate, intimidate through fear and force, forcing us to sit and wait till we come together, congregate, and then we liberate. Praying that you give me strength to find some love amongst the hate. Marching on these streets of blood till I see the golden gates. Troubadour and troubled souls, one of God's servants. Blades out, cut the grass till we see the serpents.
One day I hope you see the truth. This puppet show stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. We need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now.
I know the truth is hard to swallow, just digest it. Suspected something's going on, but chose to just neglect it. Deflected by some breaking news, oh, we just accept it. Expected just to fall in line and follow their perspective. Don't question their objective, but I got a lot of questions. How these kids molested, but nobody's been arrested. Read it in the testament, these children are protected. So I'm fighting all these terrorists, both foreign and domestic. Refuse to be directed, lion not a sheep. Only kneel to my God, so I'm dying on my feet. Silence when we speak, but there's violence in the street. I've been rolling with the punches, I can't take it on the cheek. Drink from a glass half full, I'm optimistic. People are sadistic, so vicious and malicious. Praying for assistance to overcome opposition, or I'm gonna start resisting and then I'll pray for forgiveness.
One day I hope you see the truth. This puppet show stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. Need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now. We need you